You're listening to a special edition of the Convenience Marketing Group podcast. Today's episode addresses the negative impact of the coronavirus on the convenience industry and additional things we need to be doing about it. I'm your host, Joan Zajic, along with the president of the Convenience Marketing Group, Tim Lazor. Tim, I wish we were recording this special edition podcast under different circumstances.
Boy, John, I'll tell you, I wish we were too. But we're facing the coronavirus. It's affecting a lot of people, especially the convenience industry. So let's lean in and get to it here today. So let's just talk a little bit about what convenience stores need to be doing additionally to what they're already doing, or maybe list some ideas and questions that they need to be really considering at their stores.
Sounds great.
So one of the things I wanted to to get into this was we're in a crisis. And when you're in a crisis, you really have to decide what kind of crisis you're in before you get choose your point of action. So in my old days at Ketchum Advertising and Public Relations here in Pittsburgh, one of the things that you always learn in a crisis is you have to decide specifically what crisis are you in. And there's 4 types of crises that any company or any organization will face. And the first one is an act of God, which in that case, Joan, would simply be a hurricane.
Right, an earthquake.
Yeah, snowstorm. So that's an act of God type of crisis. The second one is an act of man crisis, and that would be, the unfortunate situation of a school shooting, somebody perpetuating something on other people. So that's crisis number 2 that you can face. The third type of crisis is what's called an act of man made worse by God. And that's really a combination of the first 2, which is, you have a school shooting, and on top of that, there's a hurricane that's that's coming inside. So, it compounds it by a factor of 10, basically, that first responders have to deal with, or people in that crisis. And the last type of crisis, and the one that the convenience store industry is placed in by the coronavirus, is an act of God that's made worse by man. So we've got this virus, it's here, we're dealing with it. The spread of it is what we're worried about. And that has to do with, behavior of people, whether they play nice and behave and comply with what the government is, and the CDC and all the folks are saying, or they're not. And I think we're getting a handle on that. But that's the type of specific crisis that we're in. So having said that, of the 4 different types of crises, that's the one that we're trying to put our framework around here right now. So,
and we're trying to keep from making it any worse than we may have,
and making it, from making it any worse. And it's tough, but that's what that's what we're dealing with, and we're all in this together. So that's where we are. So let's talk about how convenience stores and the whole convenience channel can start to address this. And I want to go a lot deeper, or raise ideas and questions that convenience store owners might get out of this podcast to think through as much as they can think through to address this and come out the other side.
Well, how and where do we start?
Good question. So I think the first thing you do is you acknowledge we're in a crisis, and the crisis with this virus is spread. And specifically, it's spread by contact, right, of people touching surfaces, right, picking up the virus and touching their face, or coughing or sneezing or things like that. So we know the strategic point that we're dealing with, that spreads the virus and the crisis. So now that we know that, that's the point, we have to address the strategic point, the focal point. And convenience stores are starting to do that. And there's probably some more things we can do and consider as this virus affects behavior, affects buying behavior of people across, not only the United States, but the world.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're in a crisis like that, there's 3 things that you need to do to start to get a north star to make sure that the way that you're addressing it is correct and serious, and that you're doing everything humanly possible. And the 3 things are, and I'll expand on them in a little bit, but just to give the framework of these things, is the first thing you have to do is stop the bleeding. That's move 1. That's your triage as the convenience store owner, right? You have to make sure that your head is up and you're alive so that you can deal with employees and customers. So the first thing you want to do is stop the bleeding of the virus. The second piece of that is you have to then gain people's trust by helping, by serving, by being other focused and all in. Key point that I want to make here as you're gaining trust is you're not selling now.
Really?
You're helping, right?
Okay.
So we're all in this together. We've got to recognize that we're all in this together. It's not an either or. If we're not all in it together, we're going to fail together as well. So that's the second piece of it, is gaining trust by helping and serving. And the last thing is, as we start to come out of the crisis, then that's the time where you start to get strong again, strengthening your store, your employees, and your brand. So those are the three things that you start to address the crisis, the framework. And I want to get into those a little more in depth.
Okay. Well, let's start with
stop the bleeding.
Stopping the bleeding.
Yeah.
We all know some of the steps that we have to take. We're doing them in our homes. We're doing them if we are going to work. We're doing them in our cars.
Right.
But you've got so many touch points
right.
in a C-store.
Right.
I mean, everywhere. I'm not even thinking of all of them.
Right.
So how do we think of all of them?
Right. Well, I think when you start the process here is the first thing you do is assemble a team. And most likely your team today is going to be on a Zoom, internet kind of conference call rather than being together, because if we're practicing social distancing, we're doing that whether we're in person or over the internet. But the first thing you're going to do is you're going to assemble your team. And then the second thing you're going to do is assess your stores, again, with the touch points, with the contact points. That's where we're at. That's the strategic point where we start to really get our hands and start to solve this problem. So you start to assess your stores. And what I would like to recommend, and I do mean this literally and figuratively, is you have to have a OCD, the obsessive compulsive disorder mindset toward cleanliness and also toward checklists. And if you don't have anybody in your company that might be more OCD oriented, you need to find somebody and get them on your team. The reason I say that is they are going to think about things and they're going to see things from that perspective that you've never thought of. So that's the kind of mindset that we're doing toward cleanliness and toward germs and toward the spread of a virus. So we'd start with that OCD mentality. And what we're going to address in this podcast are, things like the surfaces, the doors, the pumps, the order points, credit cards, all that stuff. The other thing you have to do when you assemble your team is you've got to start to decide up front what your specific messages are going to be about this crisis, how you're dealing with it. And you're also going to figure out the best ways, the fastest, most nimble ways to communicate how you're dealing with it at the store level, right? This is not about spending money. It's about being resourceful and creative in your communication. And once you get your team together, you also have to make the commitment that you're going to constantly monitor and learn from this situation as you're in it.
Okay. So once you're committed to that, once you've communicated that to your team.
Right.
And they're on board with that, and you've found those people who can help you identify every possible touch point and commit to regularly policing them, if you will. How do you communicate that to your?
You're going to gain trust by helping and serving your customers. You're going to be other focused. You're going to be all in. And again, I can't emphasize enough that you're not selling now, right?
Okay.
What you're trying to do is you're creating value. You're creating safety, and you're taking a long-term vision. And the best way I could describe this is, how would you treat a family member in a coronavirus crisis situation? What would you do for a family member? That's what you would do for your customers. That's what you would do for your employees, or that would be the approach. And if you take that approach, your tonality will always be right. And like I said, your North Star and your compass will always be right. And everything else will start to fall into place within the crisis.
And I think what we all want to do is protect our family members, and we protect our customers and our employees.
Right. Yeah. So the other thing that you can do here is don't do it all yourself. You can always hitch your wagon, what I call, to a larger star, meaning there are things at the store level that you can communicate as far as CDC guidelines, the World Health Organization. If there's an 800 number that goes into your headquarters, if there's an issue, if you think, if a customer might see a sick employee or some type of, safety concern that they have, you want that communicated as quickly and efficiently back to the headquarters, to your team, as you can. The other thing you could hand out is the U.S. government guidelines on the coronavirus. Again, just as a public service, that's an easy thing to get a hold of that the Vice President of the United States holds up every day at the briefings. Again, a public service, helping, communicating. I mean, even if it's just, 50 people that don't have it, that now have it and can follow those guidelines, you're doing everything you can possibly do to help solve this crisis in the convenience industry.
And they know you're following all of these things as they go on because you're closely in tune with that.
Right. Some other things you can do there as you're gaining trust by helping is, again, being resourceful and creative. Maybe there's some cleaning products that you sell or that you use that you can tie in with and ask for their help or their donations as you go through this. Don't know what that looks like, but, obviously you have them. That might be a time where you're reaching out to some of your vendors to help you demonstrate the cleanliness. And I want to make the point that as far as addressing this crisis, you cannot over-communicate or over-demonstrate enough of what you're trying to do as far as minimizing the risk the customers perceive that they might have by coming into your store. There's no way that you can over-communicate or over-demonstrate that. If you think you're blue in the face about communicating it, those people are just starting to understand it.
That's an interesting point that you make. And if they are just beginning to understand it, nobody really has ever disliked the fact that someone's trying to protect them.
Right.
Especially in a time that's scary.
Right. And I think one of the other things in this, the trust is a big part of this, and why we're spending a little bit of time on it, is there will be a point where people will want to thank you and give you credit for what you're doing at your stores because they know it's extra effort, extra cost, extra whatever. They're going to want to thank you just like they would an emergency room doctor, and allow them to give you some credit and thanks for what you're doing when it's appropriate. You're not trying to force that, but let them do that because it's almost like a catharsis in some ways. If you're doing your job right, and if we're all in this together as a concept, they're going to have a sense of relief and thanks, and it's okay. Let them thank you.
You're right. People do want to express gratitude if they feel someone's helped them out.
Right. And then, once we're kind of through this, and who knows how long it'll take, but there is a point where we're going to return to that new normal. And just as customers will thank you, there will be a time for you to thank your customers for sticking with you, for being loyal, taking a chance on you and with you. So make sure that there's a point as you come out the other side here that you're saying thank you to your customers. And the other thing you want to keep doing is, in the context of the coronavirus, you want to keep telling your story about why you're doing the things that you're doing within the context of minimizing risk and things like that. So it's okay to tell that story. Just make sure you're telling it in the right context of helping and concern for customers and employees. But it's okay to tell that story.
That's good to know. That's good to know that it's acceptable.
Right. And once we're kind of through all of this, and we'll get into more of these tactical ideas here in a second, but once we're through the looking glass and through the other side here, there's going to be a time where even if you don't have a brand story right now and you're just kind of fighting the fire, that's okay. But also know that at some point in the future, you may want to revisit and come back to addressing your brand story, why you're different in the marketplace, because the convenience store channel is going to look completely different coming out of the other side of this crisis. If we're paying attention and learning, there will be an appropriate time where we'll return to the days of marketing and competing and doing all those things. Now is not necessarily that time, but that time will come. And I'm just saying to retailers and distributors and manufacturing, when that day comes, make sure that you're in the best possible position moving forward.
So it's something that we all need to keep in the back of our mind. And when that new normal comes, well, we hope that we're ready for it. And we also know when it is.
Yeah, we'll get into the next segment here, but maybe a lot of people know this or don't know this, but the Chinese symbol for yin yang literally means opportunity riding the dangerous wind. And I think that's an appropriate description of what is happening right now. We're in a crisis. We're dealing with it. We're leaning in as an industry, doing a pretty good job. Lots more work to do. But once this crisis is over, there will be new opportunity in the convenience category.
Oh, worth remembering. Definitely.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did say how we're going to, how you're going to let the customers know that. What happens when they're driving by the store? Because so many stores today are closed for business, takeout only.
Right.
They're looking. Well, what are they going to see?
Right. And again, I'm going to reemphasize, look at it through the eyes of someone with OCD, and they're looking at any retail establishment out there. They're looking at through the eyes of risk. I would venture to say just about everybody out there today that has to go out and buy something is evaluating risk and the risk of going into any type of establishment. And they're doing that with your stores as well if you're a retailer. So, you talk about driving up to the store, and the first thing I would suggest, at least an idea here, is do they know that you're open? Okay. I've seen a lot of restaurants around the Pittsburgh area where they are, they are open for takeout. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're open. And if you're an independent retailer, it depends on your location. There's a chance that if there aren't a lot of cars, or maybe there aren't any cars on your lot, if somebody is driving up to it, they may just assume, if you've done no other type of communication, that you are not open. So that's a risk for the retailer. Just make sure that you're communicating and demonstrating that you're open for business.
Can we do that with a banner? Obviously, signage if you have it, sandwich boards.
Again, be resourceful, be creative about how you communicate that. Yeah, it could be something as simple as a sandwich board or a banner. And in Pennsylvania here, a lot of the printers are open as essential businesses.
And that's what I was wondering about, right? Because a lot of people might not know if they can get a banner made quickly.
They are. And if you can do it, I would do it.
Great.
So demonstrate that you're open. The other thing that they're going to customer driving up to your store is, they want to know, is it clean? Can you demonstrate that it's clean at that point? They're going to be asking questions like, can I communicate to that store if they are open? And if they are clean, can I communicate to them by phone or maybe an app on my phone to order something?
Good point.
I'm looking at mitigating the risk for me as a customer. They're going to look for a drive-through possibly if you serve food.
That's true.
They're going to be looking for touchless options, whether you have them or can create them. Some other questions you might want to ask is, do we have or can we create a curbside touchless option for our customers to buy food, to buy grocery items, milk, egg, whatever is inside the store. Also going to look for, is anybody helping me at the pumps, at pump side? This is person driving up or by the store, but they're going to look for, I wonder if that store might deliver. Is there any signage that might communicate that they deliver? So what's happening in the industry is it's the whole model of the convenience channel, whether retailer, distributor, manufacturer, it's being disrupted, it's being reconfigured in a time of crisis. Just pay attention that the customer is looking at you and trying to evaluate, is this a stop with risk or minimum risk for me? And if you can minimize that risk, you have a chance of getting potential business customers that you're helping onto your lot.
Okay, and so that banner could just say, "We're open and we deep clean."
We're open and we deep clean. Yeah, and call. Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason not to. The telephone is a great. It's certainly a great call, and you can tell your story about what you're doing via the phone if somebody's that concerned.
And that's a great point. To communicate by actually putting it in writing and telling them over the phone. And at the pumps, you said, because this is a very different mindset from self-serve. You're suggesting that someone could actually be working there filling the pumps as an attendant.
Yeah, and again,
Or not filling the pumps, filling the tanks as an attendant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I approach these things with a technique that's called five sensing, meaning that you're trying to communicate and demonstrate cleanliness and minimizing risk through all the senses that people have: sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell, right? Mm-hmm. And the more of those that you can actively engage with the customer with, that they think or understand that you're minimizing their risk of stopping at your store, the more trust that you'll gain with those people. Okay. So when you talk about the gas pumps, so let's assume they have to buy gas and they pull up. Well, is there pump side help that's available? Will somebody pump their gas? Now, go a little further. How do you demonstrate that this is the most cleanly, risk-free stop that I can make to get gas? Well, can you have a pump attendant out there? And that pump attendant has latex gloves, has a mask on, right? Mm-hmm. Has a cleaning solution where they might be cleaning the pumps. Is there a way that person, again, each convenience store will be different, but they have to decide, how does that person pay? Cash, credit? Does the person hand their credit card to the attendant, the gas person that's at the pump? Do they trust them to put in their PIN number for them so that this becomes a completely touchless type of transaction? Those are things that have to be talked through with your crisis team and your communication team. But again, all the touch points are what we're trying to clean up or eliminate for the customer.
And if that customer says, okay, I'm comfortable now that I've purchased gas here and I'm kind of impressed with what they're doing, maybe I can go in now and there's something else that I could stock up on, see if they have. Maybe the attendant could even say, okay, we're cleaning doors. I mean, that's the next step. They're going to go through the doors.
Well, when you're at the pumps, I mean, that attendant could also go inside and shop for that customer and bring things out for them. Again, you have to work through the payment options and things like that. But that's another service that you can. I mean, you have that person out there. So the problem is, now that it's always tough. From 50%, maybe if you're really great as a retailer, getting 60 to 70% of the people who buy gas to come inside the store. That's not happening right now, right? That's
right.
It's just gas. It's gas, and I'm leaving. That's hurting the retailer on the inside of the store. So again, we're trying to mitigate that risk. Right now with gasoline, the good news is that, the margins are pretty good as gas prices fall. The problem with that is less people are buying gas, and more importantly, less people want to go inside the store, right, with the coronavirus going on. So those are things that we're trying to address and demonstrate that we're minimizing the risk for the customer to then come inside the store, helping them either buy from inside the store or to come inside the store. But they have to have that confidence and that trust in us.
And if they do decide they're confident enough to go through the door.
Right. Well, that's the next touch point,
Yes.
Again, with our OCD mindset is, that's the next risk place is they've got to touch that door. So again, some ideas here is why not keep the doors open as we get into the spring weather here and prop them open so that people don't have to navigate or take the risk of touching a door and cleaning themselves and things like that. So you're literally going through the doors is a no-touch experience for them. Or here's another idea. Maybe somebody opens the door for them. That's an employee. Again, we're trying to offer ideas and things that you can consider along every touch point as you go in and through the store to get out as quickly as you can and minimize the risk. When that person goes, as soon as they enter those doors and look inside the store, they're going to ask again a couple of risk mitigation questions, which is, are the employees healthy? Do I believe that they're evaluated before every shift, that their health is okay? Again, that could be a communication piece with a sign. That could be a communication piece if you have audio within the stores, that person, you could have literally like on your PA system that all of our employees are evaluated before every single shift. Another consideration that customers are going to have is when they're, again, walking through the door, is this place staffed for speed? Is there a sense of hustle in this store, right? Am I going to get in and out of this store as quickly as possible? Again, as you scan the store, are people cleaning? Are there cleaning props in and around? When I say cleaning props, I mean Normally with mops and with cleaning solution and things like that, we put those things away and we hide them. However, during a coronavirus, are there strategic places in the store that we can place our mop, our buckets that are out of the way, that it's safe, but that is also somewhere inside, visible inside the store?
Because you don't want to just be telling people that you're doing all this cleaning and all this care. You want to show them.
Right, yeah. Showing them, demonstrating it also communicates something. I mean, even with Mr. Clean and the water in a bucket, you can, being within proximity to that, you can smell that, and it smells clean. And I think one of the things that we want to consider is, think surgery center, think hospital, right? Those places, they smell, look clean. We want to transfer those ideas and thinking over to our convenience stores as well. Another thing, just social distance. Are people keeping social distance within the store?
Right.
Are our employees communicating that? Again, it doesn't cost anything to say to people, hey, just make sure we're all practicing good, safe social distance here. If you go to the airport and the employees there will ask you to take off your shoes, there's no reason why in a convenience store an employee can't be assigned, again, not to be a jerk about it, but just to be politely and with some energy saying, hey, we're all in this together. Let's practice social distancing.
And that's a nice way of putting it. And as long as you give your employees that empowerment to do so and a couple nice ways to do it,
right,
hopefully people do realize that we are all in this together.
Right.
Now, what about, we were mentioning some signage and point of sale, right, and, window signs. What do you think would help drive that message?
Well, again, as the customer comes up to the store, we're again trying to gain trust and mitigate risk and the feeling that it's risky to go inside the store. So this is the perfect opportunity for window signs and point of sale, things like pump toppers as an example. Instead of having a message like 2 Gatorades for $3, maybe that's at the pump topper. We talk about the cleanliness and maybe a 30-minute guarantee that we're cleaning around the pumps every 30 minutes. So, and we even guarantee that. As people walk up to the store and they see window signs, again, rather than some specific promotional offer, which I don't think we really want to do, maybe we offer touchless delivery. Maybe we offer people to sign up for our app. Maybe we demonstrate via point of sale that our employees are evaluated before they start every shift. There are things that we can use that we would normally think for promotional or hard, more hard selling type of things. We can swap out those point of sale pieces, those banners, those pump toppers, those whatever. And instead of doing that, we have more of a risk mitigation message to people. Again, gaining confidence and trust so that they feel good about coming inside the store.
And when you're following through on all those 30-minute promises, for example, a share of your customers are going to run into one of those employees while they're cleaning. And so they're going to be able to say by word of mouth, wow, are they on top of this?
Yeah. One of the things about marketing that makes it work is frequency of messages. That's true if you're selling, you're doing promotional things, or if you're in a crisis mode, which we're in, you want to, frequency is your friend. If you're doing the right things and you're doing them in the right places outside and inside the store, frequency of message and demonstration is your friend. You can't do too much of it in this situation.
And that is good to keep in mind. So, they've come through the store. They've observed all of this. They're ready to check out. We've got another whole set of checkpoints there, or touch points rather, right?
Well, both inside and once they come into the store, they're going to look at the checkout area first. They want to see what the line looks like there. And they're going to look at things like, is there hand sanitizer or some type of sanitization process there? GetGo here in Pittsburgh started to do a plexiglass barrier. Good idea. I like that. Are the people working at the checkout using latex gloves? Are there self-ordering options for checkout? Is there scan and go? ability? Is there a mobile payment there? I mean, the reason that a customer is going to look at this first is because when they get what they want, whatever those products are inside the store, they want to get out as fast as they can. They're measuring and evaluating the risk that they're about to take from beginning to end. So once they're inside the store, they're going to check out the checkout line, because if it looks risky at that point, or there's not social distancing, or it doesn't feel clean, or anything that might not work for the retailer, they're going to turn around and they're going to go out. Won't even get a chance. And where that's going to get clogged up is at the checkout line.
Okay, I see. So it's not just checking out. They're evaluating that checkout area before they've even decided to go through the whole store.
Right, because it could be risky for them.
So
they're going to that's going to factor into whether they're going to shop inside the store. So they're starting at the end is the best way I can describe that.
Interesting.
Right.
So before they decide to go through the middle, okay, for coffee and fountain and milk and all those types of things. Okay, so say we've convinced them.
Right.
Okay.
Good point.
So we've convinced them. So then they're going to be walking through all those other areas, right? And again, we have another series of touch points.
Right.
Coffee.
Coffee.
Seems to, first thing in the morning, there's coffee.
Yeah. Well, we can attack both coffee and fountain because they're very similar, which is the first idea that you want to consider is there somebody there that can act as a server? They can pull the cup out of the sleeve and get that customer's order. And again, they're wearing gloves, maybe wearing a mask, depending on your operational procedures, and they get that coffee for the person. And the reason for that is the touch point is the handle on the coffee point, and it's also touching the cups as well. So this is again a way to mitigate the touch points within the store. So maybe a convenience store retailer can do that, but the coffee pot handles are obviously, a lot of touches to that. The other thing that you absolutely cannot have is there's no self mugs. There's no mugs that you can bring in there that you've been putting to your lips and pouring coffee into. Same thing with fountain drinks. You can't have any of your own mugs brought into the store. It's just too risky. And if just one person gets away with that and somebody sees it, that's bad. Imagine if somebody with their smartphone then videotapes it and it goes viral. Well,
so again, if you have a server, your server is going to have to be empowered,
right,
to nicely say, here's why you're going to put yourself at risk,
right,
or others at risk. We just can't do it.
Right. And again, that it doesn't cost anything per se to have somebody communicating like that. But I think most people realize what's going on with the coronavirus. We're all in this together. We're trying to minimize risk and maximize sanitation. So I don't think it's too big of a leap for them to understand what we're trying to achieve here within our store.
Okay. And also they should be seeing things everywhere within the store. Say they move to the coolers.
Yeah, I think in the cooler doors, as far as cleanliness goes, you could apply an idea that's very similar to what you put in the bathrooms, which is, the piece of paper that says, these handle doors have been cleaned every 15 minutes, and have somebody put their initials and sign it, that you're doing that. It's a simple cleanliness type of thing, but more importantly, it's a way to demonstrate it to customers. And plus it holds your people accountable to make sure that all the touch points are being cleaned within the store.
It does. And inside the coolers, you said that, people coming to the convenience stores, I know that supermarkets have been running out of eggs. They've been running out of milk. Yeah,
I think the main point with your cooler doors, especially in this area is, do you have milk? Do you have bread? Mm-hmm. Do you have eggs and cheese? With things that are going on with the dairy bankruptcies right now with like Dean Food and Borden, that's disrupting the whole dairy flow situation. So, convenience stores, there's a high likelihood that the convenience store has those things, right, if they have a good distributor network. Just as an example, one of our clients' Team Sled, they have a direct store distribution mechanism where they're actually delivering milk products directly into the convenience store. So this is an innovation that Sled has done for just a little while now, but they've done it to attack and address all the dairy industry disruption. So there's a really high likelihood that your local convenience store is going to have milk where your grocery store might not.
And I ran into that situation not many days ago. I wanted milk. Fortunately, I wasn't out yet, but I couldn't get any whole milk. I couldn't. There was some skim, some 2%. I'd like whole milk in my coffee.
Right.
And it just wasn't available. I left the store and I passed a mother leaning on her shopping cart with her daughters. And I heard her say, okay, they're out of eggs. Let's make another plan. We have to decide how we can change the menu. She didn't know about going to a local convenience store. That didn't enter her mind.
Right.
So it's something to think about if you've got those products. Again, put a sign out.
Yeah, and I think the other thing you have to talk to your team and your pricing people about here is, are you priced right from a perception standpoint? Normally, people will pay more for convenience, the convenience of shopping inside a convenience store. There's typically a premium price. However, these are not typical times. You just need to make sure that you and your team all feel good about your pricing during a crisis of milk, bread, really all your products inside your store. You don't want to be, after all this work of cleanliness and what you're trying to do and help, the last thing you want to do is make a mistake or just not pay attention to pricing where people think that you're price gouging. So I just say that as a cautionary point is, you can go through all this work and drop the ball at the end. So make sure your pricing is fair and right and appropriate for a crisis.
So you think it's acceptable for convenience store owners to put up a small message, like a small shelf talker that says, just take one or two, we're all in it together, and in these times, we're trying to be fair when it comes to our pricing?
I do. I think that, not to be ha-ha fun here, but you can have a little bit of, attitude with people about this, which would be, we, in a time of crisis, we're pricing fair. We're not going to be a pig about this. And we don't want you to be that way either in terms of hoarding or taking all the product off our shelves. So there are ways that you can communicate this that reflect your attitude toward your business and what you're trying to do to help people, and have a little bit of fun. And again, not ha-ha fun,
right,
but you're having a little bit of fun about this because, again, we're all in the submarine together.
We are. And again, at another store where there were signs saying, please, only one or two, or in the case of canned goods, maybe only 4 per customer when all of this began.
Right.
I remember that. I remember thinking, oh, good, I'm so glad they're doing that.
Right.
And I won't forget it.
Right. Yeah, it's a nice touch. And again, it's thinking through all the touch points and how people are shopping and they're behaving differently during a crisis.
So when we continue on, the next thing we're talking about is food service, right?
Yeah,
how that's changed.
Yeah, that's a big one. Again, there's absolutely no self-service, no roller grills, no people touching or self-serving, whatever. And it's just a big no-no now. And as you're into food service, I don't think you can be over clean, oversensitive to how you're being perceived with food service. This is what really makes people nervous. So again, you're cleaning, the touch screens. If you have kiosks, some convenience stores today still have, you pick up a pencil and you fill out an order form. You need to be cleaning that stuff, those pencils and swapping them out or doing whatever, because all those touch points are where coronavirus can be transmitted. Even from a perception, a visual standpoint, are the employees wearing gloves? They better be. Are they wearing a mask? Are they are they practicing social distancing when, they deliver the order and put it on the counter? Are they wiping that counter where things are being set down and somebody's coming to pick up their takeout order, whatever? You have to think through all of those processes as you're going through this.
Okay, good points. Now, is there anything else around there? I mean, people aren't exactly going to be staying and eating in the stores at this point, but I guess that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably unlikely. But again, I think you need to be cleaning those tables, those chairs, those condiment areas where the napkins and all that stuff is. People are touching that, maybe throwing it in their takeout bag. The other thing you might want to consider is if you're sourcing food locally, whether it's bread or meats or whatever it might be in your local market, that would probably be a nice touch to communicate that you are sourcing locally, that something didn't have to come through 3 countries to get to your store.
Good point. It's safe, and it had a shorter distance more likely to be safer, and it's had to travel a shorter distance, and you're also supporting someone in your community.
Yeah, and I don't think you can underestimate the value of supporting local businesses. I mean, convenience stores are somewhat fortunate that they are deemed an essential business, and they've been able to stay open in a crisis where a lot of other places have been shuttered by either the state, local, or federal government. So, this is an opportunity to also be a good citizen within your community by calling out those local businesses that are part of the ecosystem.
And I don't think you can stress that point enough. The luck happened to fall their way in this particular crisis.
Right.
It's time to take advantage of it in a good way, not taking advantage of others, but just taking advantage of how well they can shine.
Yeah, and when you say luck, I would put that in air quotes, because I think somebody has to do this job, and convenience stores, it broke their way that they are essential businesses, and that's good. I think if your mind and your heart is to the good, and you're trying to help, and we're all in this together, everything at the end will come out okay as we come out the other side of this.
It's a good thought to keep in mind. Now, something else that people are looking toward convenience stores for are beer and wine. Here in Pennsylvania, we have state stores, for our liquor control board controlled stores. Those are closed.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about center store now, and beer and wine, just make sure that you're stocked. And I'm sure that's a high demand product right now in convenience stores. So again, watch your pricing there, but make sure you're stocked, and that you can get the beer and wine for your customers. Some other things to think through here are, toilet paper, bottled water, condoms and tampons for sure, sanitizer, just plain soap. All right. Dish liquid, all those cleansing type of things that we normally don't purchase at convenience stores. Now we are going to purchase at convenience stores, or have the opportunity. Even things like, rubbing alcohol and sprayers. Just a personal thing that I do every flu season, is I'll take a sprayer from the local hardware store and fill it up with 91% rubbing alcohol, keep it in my cup holder, right inside the car. And as I traverse, and I'm touching things or going in and out, pumping gas, whatever, I'll put some of that rubbing alcohol on, and I also will spray it into wipes to help goose them up in a sense and make them, more efficacious. So that there's no reason, if the product is available, that a convenience store could not sell just 91% or 70% rubbing alcohol as hand sanitizers become harder and harder, or wipes get harder and harder to find. You could kind of make your own. And the other thing you could do is, why not put your logo, your brand on that particular sprayer with that rubbing alcohol, and sell that inside the convenience stores? That's
a great idea.
Right.
So people are carrying your name home with them. And again, it's something that we're going to have to substitute for. So people are going to have to become more clever in finding ways to sanitize everything.
Right. Yeah. It's just a resourceful thing that you can do to help prevent the spread of coronavirus.
And then when we do get into the front end impulse area,
yeah,
what kind of things do you think people could be looking for there, or maybe not knowing that they needed, but that could be there?
Yeah, front end, again, and the impulse area, or the queue area, as you find it, as people are practicing social distancing and they're trying to get in and out of the store quickly. But this is certainly an area for more health and wellness products. There, the little drug RX type of things. Mm-hmm. But again, make sure that you've got things like Tylenol, that you have flu, flu products, things like that. CBD has been really popular in convenience stores over the last year. There may be some CBD products that may be a little closer to helping with flu or illness or sickness or things like that. Mm-hmm. The other thing I would throw out there for retailers to consider, something they might not have heard of before, which is called homeopathic remedies. And I don't want to get into a whole discussion about this, but homeopathy has been around a long time. And there's, like, for an example, and it's sold in most retail pharmacies today, is a homeopathic remedy called oxacillium, which is to fight flu virus. And you take it as a preventive type of product, or if you're coming down with the flu, you take oxacillium, which helps lessen the impact of the flu on you if you take it fast enough. So this, to me, this is a product that, again, convenience retailers can put more toward the front end in that health and wellness type of section as an impulse item that, again, helps address health issues and helps address the coronavirus crisis. So
Interesting.
Something to consider.
Yes. Well, we talked among all the hygiene, and I think the most obvious thing is bathroom cleanliness. But, of course, we'll be instituting hand washing procedures there. You would have the signs on the doors, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think the bathroom is just a place that you make sure that you're doing your due diligence in there and making sure that the hygiene posters are up, and just make sure that they're hyper clean and they're super clean as customers use them. That's just good. That's just good fundamentals in the C-store business.
Any other areas where you think C-stores could be filling in now, where they might not have been traditionally?
Well, I think the one that's been creeping up on us for a long time has been delivery.
Okay.
So, this is the time where you might want to either reduce or eliminate delivery fees if you're a convenience store that delivers. If you don't, you might want to think about getting into the delivery business, either with your employees or by implementing, Uber and Lyft. Those people are, as people aren't traveling to go here and there might be Uber drivers and Lyft drivers that you can train with your procedures of sanitation and cleanliness and maybe touchless deliveries that would be more than happy to work for a convenience store and help to execute some of those delivery needs. It's a whole other, opportunity for convenience stores to think more creatively, more resourcefully about how does delivery fit into their model. Again, pizza shops have been doing this forever, right?
Right.
And C-stores have, kind of been getting into it now, but maybe now is the time, again, with the coronavirus crisis, to be even more helpful to customers by considering delivery. One other thing I want to add with delivery is there might be hidden markets for convenience stores to deliver products to certain places, like a nursing home. If there are products that a convenience store that either has in their store or that they can get from their distributor, and then they can deliver those directly to a place. And again, this would have to be touchless because it's a nursing home and it's a coronavirus. But if there are ways we could just, take that credit card, have that order placed, and we deliver it and provide that service for that need, it could be a whole other opportunity in the future for delivery. And again, I keep coming back to the model of the convenience industry. If you're a retailer, a distributor, or a manufacturer, it's reconfiguring itself right now. And I think you have to pay attention to the reconfiguration because as we come out of this, that's where the opportunity will be.
That's a great idea. And one idea strikes me is that you also have to pay attention to how you might be asking employees to take on some other responsibilities or some different roles than they had been in the past. And yet, those employees going forward are going to be a really big investment for those store owners.
Yeah, and they have been. I mean, you have right now the risk of employees that just don't want to work because they don't want to be exposed to the coronavirus. Right. Legitimate concern. Again, this is why we're doing everything possible for employees and customers to mitigate that risk. Again, the hero of a story, they don't always have to win, but they always have to try. And I think that's the case now is you have to give yourself every possible chance of winning as a convenience store retailer and doing everything possible and then some, again, putting your OCD mindset hat on. Have we covered every possible base here? Because there's always one more risk that you haven't noticed or addressed, but you at least have to try.
And I think it's that mindset that you had mentioned in your manifesto, which is not a part of this podcast, but right. The essential thing that thing that jumped out at me was that you commit, as you just said, we will do this going forward. And that is the attitude.
Yeah, that's the expectation. There's an old saying that a culture is created by what you expect. And that goes true for a basketball team or a football team. It's true for a convenience store team. And I think now is the time for the leaders of convenience stores to raise the expectation of their role in the world, why they're unique and why they're meeting this challenge and raising the level of the game, and also asking their employees and expecting them to raise the level of their game. I don't think there's any other way around that other than to expect something better and bigger from everybody as we all go through this together.
So what do you think the future's looking like?
Well, I mean, some players won't make it in the restaurant business for sure. That's going to be reconfigured. Our business, the convenience store space, is going to be reconfigured just about the way it works. And I think we're going to pay a lot more attention to how products get into our stores, and we're going to go the whole way upstream and examine all that. This has been forced upon us in a sense. It's an act of God, either made better or worse by man, as we talked at the beginning. But within all of that, if we're paying attention and we're monitoring, and again, if our mind is toward helping and being in this with everybody, and we're constantly trying to learn, as we come out of this, I think we'll all be better in this category. I think it's going to reconfigure. I don't think it'll necessarily snap back to the way that it was, but I do think it's an opportunity for it all to get really a lot better.
And if people would like to learn more about this and learn about this in more depth or have a conversation, how do they contact you?
They can go to the website, which would be conveniencmarketing.net. They can reach me by phone. The office number here at the Convenience Marketing Group is 412-423-0044. If they need to reach me on my cell, it would be 412-400-3144. And my direct email would be Tim Lazor. I'll spell that. It's TimLazor at Comcast.net. They can reach me if they want to get a copy of the Convenience Marketing Manifesto. Once that's published, I'll be happy to send them a copy of that. If they'd like to do any more discussion on coronavirus and this crisis or any material that's included in this special edition of this podcast, we'd be more than happy to chat.
Thank you, Tim. It was really good talking with you today. Let's just never forget it. We're all in this together.
In it together. Thanks, Jen.